What is going on, guys? This is Jarse here, and today I am here for a video where I'm going to be covering all A-League moves so far this transfer window. We're quite early in, so the moves across the league are a little bit inconsistent. I think a few clubs are still finalising the players that are going to leave, like they haven't even announced their full departure list, but there's at least one in or out for every club, and I thought I'd go through, not really to do any serious analysis of any of the moves, but just to kind of brush up on the league, because obviously, like with the grand final situation and everything, my interest, and I think a lot of other people's as well, fell when it came to the A-League, and I don't want to miss out on the football, so yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. Running through all A-League transfers, and we're going in alphabetical order. So we're starting with Adelaide, who, by the way, my research is iffy. It's like, I don't think I've got anything wrong. Like, I'm not going to tell you any moves that are just incorrect, but I may have missed some. I know there's like some NPL moves, like youth players that I've missed and stuff, but I got most of the departures and I got most of the ins and outs. And also, like, I'm recording this on a Tuesday night. That's when my hair's wet. Just got back from football. Did I say that? I can't remember. But, yeah, there's bound to be another in or out across the league in the, 18 hours between recording this and uploading. So, yeah, apologies for anything incorrect. I've done my best. And, yeah, let's get into it with Adelaide, who have one move, and it's an out for Juande, the 36-year-old defensive midfielder. He suffered an injury this season and only played about 12 games. And that probably signals his time in the A-League as well. He's quite old. He's coming off the back of an injury, and I don't know if he's going to get another move to an A-League club, but he leaves having played 100 or a bit shy of 100 games in Australia, and he won the Premier's Plate with Perth Glory in 18-19. So I think Juande's left a decent legacy behind, and yeah, I mean, if an A-League club does take a risk on him, I think he could potentially work out, but he does seem a bit old. Then we move on to Brisbane, and they haven't signed anyone as of yet, but they've lost a couple of players. The first player that's leaving is Jordan Courtney Perkins. He was on loan from Rakow Chestochua. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to him. I imagine another A-League loan could follow, and I wouldn't mind Sydney FC taking a punt, because from what I've seen of him, he's okay. Josh Brindle South also leaving. He only made 9 appearances for Brisbane this season. Another young left back pissing off from the club. I imagine he'll get a contract somewhere in the A-League following this. Then we've got Robbie Cruz. His contract expires after playing 7 minutes for Brisbane this season. And the only comment I've got on Robbie Cruz is, No, Sydney! Do not do this! Because it would be so fucking Sydney to go out and take a punt on Robbie Cruz at this point. It'd be like the love child of signing Cam Sober and Jack Rodwell. Although, both of those worked out, so maybe, but no. Then, and this is also going to be another problem, I'm just going to have to run through some players, because Marcel Canati, 25-year-old central midfielder, his contract expires, and I have absolutely no idea. Joe Knowles, another NPL striker, who didn't really cut it in the A-League. He played 21 matches for Brisbane this season. He also scored in the loss to Leeds in the pre-season, and he picked up 3 assists, but it's nothing. So, yeah, he's leaving Brisbane, and yeah, that's that. And then, Jordan Holmes as well, 26-year-old goalkeeper leaving Brisbane. Now, I think he's actually a potentially decent goalkeeper. It's always hard to tell, and I don't feel like there's that much of a variation between like the top 6 or 7 goalkeepers in the A-League, and there never really has been. Like sometimes there's an elite one, but that usually is just a phase more than, over the space of a couple of years. But I feel like Jordan Holmes could be picked up by another A-League club, should be picked up by another A-League club, and, we could potentially see him in the A-League next season. But that's all the outs for Brisbane Roar. I'll run through it again. Jordan Courtney Perkins, 20-year-old left back. Josh Brindle South, 20-year-old left back. Robbie Cruz, fucking old winger. Marcel Canati, no one cares about. Joe Knowles, 26-year-old NPL striker. And Jordan Holmes, 26-year-old starting A-League goalkeeper. All leave for Brisbane. Then we move on to the champions, the Mariners. And they've signed one player, lost one player so far. Although I think with having only lost one player, that probably just means that they haven't finalised the players that, will be leaving on mutuals or, expired contracts. But the player in is Jack Warshawky. I think I've said it right. He's the Aussie under-21s first choice keeper, and he signs with the Mariners on a 2-year deal from Western Sydney's youth setup. Looks like a promising signing, and I think that, having a young Aussie keeper at your club next to Danny Vukovic, learning off him every day is going to be great for his development. So, yeah, we could be seeing him do things in the future, but that's the Mariners signing so far. And the player leaving is Nectarios Triantis. Have I said it right? Fuck. He's off to Sunderland for an undisclosed fee. I couldn't find a figure. I looked at about 3 websites and could not find a figure. But he played 26 games in a second place grand final winning season for the Mariners. At 20 years old, he looked awesome. He was great in the final, and he's been great all season. So, I think this move is massive for the young Aussie. And, I'm excited to see how he'll be doing in the championship next season if he gets game time. He's on the out for the Mariners, but they picked up a fee for him, and he won them a title. So I don't know what more you could ask for there. Then we move on to the MacArthur. They've signed one player so far, and it's a player that I actually rate quite highly. It's Clayton Lewis from the Knicks. He signs on a 2-year deal, and I think he's a really good player. He's good at passing. He's good at defending. He's looked quite decent at the Knicks. I don't know how he's going to do at MacArthur. I think it really depends on the team. A lot of people say on the internet, he is him. I get the sentiment. It sounds cringe as fuck to say, but my point is that he's not him. He's not going to be turning around MacArthur. But I feel like if MacArthur turn around, he's going to be an absolute piece for them and could potentially be a part of taking them to another level. They're not going to turn it around, but if they do, miraculously, then I think Clayton Lewis is a good pickup. I think he's a good pickup anyway. I just think players that go to MacArthur suffer. Then MacArthur have a lot of outs. First of all, Nicholas Suman. His contract expires. He's a young goalkeeper. He mainly played for Northbridge, and I'm deciding to dub him Daniel Nizizic 2.0 because that's what he's going to become. Then Bakana Arabuli's contract expires. He played 15 games for MacArthur and scored 5 goals. He's just another forgettable foreigner for the Bulls. And he's pissing off. Alexander Susnya, 27-year-old centre-back. His contract expires. He might actually be the closest thing to a MacArthur legend. He's been there for 3 seasons. But this season, and I hardly even watch MacArthur, but he played, I think, under 10 games in the Cup and League combined. So, I don't know. Yeah, it looks like he wasn't really doing much for MacArthur. Craig Noon, his 2-year stint at MacArthur comes to an end with his contract expiring. He leaves an Australia Cup winner, but he never really hit his heights at MacArthur, and that's because his heights are shit. Maybe he did. They're just low. He scored that thunder cunt against Central Coast last season, and I don't know what else to say. I don't feel like Craig Noon is a big loss. He was probably still one of the best players for MacArthur, but they needed to move on from him. Jason Romero, He's from San Jose, and he played 5 games for MacArthur. Daniel De Silva, he's starting a fucking journey, man. A journey of getting to 6, 7, 8 A-League clubs. Because, like, he was one of the more promising young players in the A-League 5 years ago. Now he's 26 years old. He had an average stint with Sydney FC. He was bummed out of Central Coast when they started having ambition. And now he couldn't really cut it for MacArthur either. So, yeah. It's a weird one. I think he's going to get another contract in the A-League, but he's been really disappointing lately. Then Moody Najjar leaves MacArthur, and I think Moody Najjar is a shit Nazarene. Nazarene is better because he has less fat. Like margarine and butter. Fuck me. I'm tired. I don't need to say anymore. I'm going to start losing my fucking mind if I do. And the big one, I think, is Alassane Toure, 23-year-old striker. His contract expires at MacArthur. I reckon he's turned into a bit of a fucking flop. But in 50 games for MacArthur, he's made 18 goal contributions. He actually had 14 goals and assists in 28 games this season, although a lot of those were in the Cup. But I reckon another decent A-League side might take a punt on him. I could see him going somewhere like Victory or something like that, where, he would hope for a team around him and they would hope for a, 10, 15 goal a season striker. If anything, he's a fucking Australia Cup merchant. Like, I just want Sydney to sign him so he can put 10 past Oakley if we get them next season. But, yeah. Alassane Toure is the final player leaving MacArthur. To run through again, Nicholas Suman, Bakana Arabouli, Alexander Susnia, Jason Romero, Moody Najjar, Daniel De Silva, Craig Noon, and Alassane Toure all leave MacArthur. It's an exodus, but they need a rebuild, and maybe it's on. Probably not, though, because they're shit. Then we move on to Melbourne City. They haven't signed anyone yet, but they have lost a lot of players. Jordan Boss, first of all, definitely the best young left back in the A-League. Farrell looks good. King was okay, but Jordan Boss has been the best left back or young left back in the A-League this season. He was picked up by, I believe, a Belgish club for $2 million. And yeah, I mean, he had an impressive stint at Melbourne City. He started 28 games this season, and he leaves a multiple trophy winner in Australia. I'm not sure if he got any of the trophies in, previous seasons, but I'm sure he did. If not, still picked up the Premier's plate. And he's off to Europe, bringing in Melbourne City a $2 million fee. Scott Jamieson leaves. He's a cunt. He's retiring, and he's a cunt. Then Valon Berisha, his loan ends. I thought he had a decent, above average, good even stint with Melbourne City. He played a lot of games. He won the Premier's plate. He swore on the telly and he left. And, I don't know whether he's going to come back to the A-League or not, but he'd be an interesting pickup for Sydney FC or a lot of other A-League clubs, to be fair. We'll see what happens, but he's off from Melbourne City. Then Tom Glover, his contract expires. He's not going to Wrexham, but he could go somewhere and be good because I think he's had a very impressive stint with Melbourne City. I know there's been some dodgy times, but he's played 100 games for them and he's looked decent or even great for a lot of it. So, congratulations, Tom Glover, on a excellent stint in the A-League. Now, go do your country proud and become our new first choice keeper. Then Aidan O'Neill, this is the first one that could have gone wrong. I know he's also signed, I think, for Standard Liège, but he's defo signed for a Belgian club. He's fucking phenomenal. I actually would have said Sydney should have had a punt on him. Try to, kind of Brandon O'Neill him in, bring him in his early mid-20s, give him a couple of seasons to get even better. But realistically, he's probably not doing that at Sydney. That's why he was picked up by a club in Europe. But for Melbourne City, he played 62 games and won 4 trophies. I think he developed into just an absolutely excellent player. I remember watching him in his Mariners days, and he was phenomenal. And the player that he's become is absolutely impressive. I believe he was recognised in a Team of the Season this season, and I think that's fair because I put him a little bit below Brimmer in how good he is, but I think he's younger, and he's got a lot of room to develop. So Aidan O'Neill, fucking phenomenal, and he's off to Europe. Then also Matt Sutton, Rafael Borges Rodriguez, and Karen Stokes also leave the club. So the big ones there are Boss, Jamison, Barisha, Glover, and O'Neill leaving, but those dudes do too. Then we move on to their crosstown pedophile rivals, Melbourne Victory. They haven't signed anyone yet because Tony Popovich is out looking for children, his own, to sign. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, they haven't signed anyone yet. They've lost a couple of players though. Nani leaves. He made 10 appearances. He was a terrible marquee. But can I just mention, come on. Everyone was excited for Nani. People are like, this is why we shouldn't do marquees. Fuck off, Captain Hindsight. You're full of shit. Everyone was excited for Nani. Victory fans were excited for Nani. Maybe you weren't. Everyone probably wasn't. But I think a lot of people were. And, acting like there's some fundamental problem with all marquees because of this is just a bit hypocritical, I think. But, yeah, what a fucking flop. Matt Acton also leaves the club. He was never good enough for Victory. He stole a living. He's borderline retarded, and it's probably good for them that they finally got him out of the club. Tommy Urich, also another flop. Played less games than Nani. Got more goals, though. 1. He's leaving because his contract's over. Cadete, 28-year-old left back, played 25 games for Victory this season. I hardly noticed him, but again, wasn't as dedicated as I would have liked to have been to the league this season. Bruce Kamau, his loan expires. Might be one of the most forgettable stints in the A-League, him playing for Melbourne Victory. Fernando Romero, 23-year-old striker, his loan expires. And seeing this guy leave, because I remember at the start of the season, I think I gave him a bit of a chance of doing well for Victory. I thought it could be possible that he'd succeed, but I honestly think Tony Popovich has imparted his Western Sydney-ness upon Melbourne Victory because, look at some of these signings. Kamau, Cadete, Urich. I think they all came in this season. Romero. With a bit of hindsight. I just called everyone cunts for using hindsight, but now I will. I'm a hypocrite. With a bit of hindsight, these reek of West Sydney, these signings. I think Victory might be the new West Sydney. And then finally for Victory, Leighton Brooks is leaving. His contract expires. He's been with Melbourne Victory since 2019. He's been a part of the first team setup since 2020. And yeah, what a forgettable stint. But he is 22 years old, so he could go somewhere. Either way, that's Melbourne Victory. We move on to Newcastle, who have been doing business recently. They've got in Daniel Wilmering, young left back from West Sydney. I think Daniel Wilmering has looked promising. He hasn't looked even as good as, Joel King yet. But I think he could develop into a solid A-League left back. Only time will tell, and honestly, being realistic, he probably won't be that good for Newcastle, but I think there is potential there. They've also signed Lucas... No, they haven't signed him. He's returning from a loan with Wellington. But Lucas Marguais is coming back to Newcastle. No idea whether he's actually part of their plans. He's also a left back, so if he does stay with Newcastle, he'd be competing with Wilmering. But he played 20 games for the Knicks last season, so... we'll see what happens. Then Jacob Dowse, 22-year-old central midfielder, has signed from Perth Glory. He played in 17 games last season in the league and picked up 5 assists, which isn't that impressive, but he only made 1 start and he averaged 24 minutes a game. I think that's a bit impressive, And he's actually, I think, from the area. He's definitely been there before because he spent 5 years with Broadmeadow Magic before then and looked like a really decent NPL level midfielder. So, yeah, Jacob Dowse could be good for Newcastle. I'm sure their fans are hoping he will. And, again, only time will tell. He had a semi-decent season for Perth. I hardly noticed him. I mean, I'm just saying those stats kind of look a bit impressive for a, young player playing very few minutes. But yeah, we'll see. Then Ryan Scott signs from Western United, and I imagine he'd be starting next season. Those are the ins for Newcastle. Then on the outs, we've got, first of all, Jack Duncan, who has signed with Wellington. I think he's a good pickup for Wellington. I'm going to talk about him now, so I don't have to when we get to those sheep fuckers. But, yeah, I don't have strong opinions on Jack Duncan. I think you've got to be more dedicated to football than I am to have strong opinions on Jack Duncan or a Newcastle fan. So yeah, he's gone to Wellington, and I mean, we'll see how he turns out. Matt German. I saw an unverified Twitter account claiming to work for Channel 9 saying that he is going to sign for another A-League club. I think it even said a Sydney club. So, Matt German, at 33 years old, Sydney. No, we won't go the whole way, but bring him home. Bring him home. Fuck it. What's the point? We're having a rebuild year. Bring German in. He knows the club. He knows how to bring the passion. We'll forget that stint that he had at the other club. And, just bring him home, Sydney. But he's leaving Newcastle. That's confirmed. Joshua. It's Joshua, but in preparing for this video, I found out that his name's spelt like a fucking bogan. Jausua. Fucking, I hate that cunt. He's off to India. He played one season for Newcastle, and for me, he's a fucking flop. Although, he does kind of get forced into like a striker role when he seems more of a winger. But yeah, flop. Then Angus Thurgate. I think this could be the signing of the season. Do I have strong arguments for that? Absolutely not. But Angus Thurgate gives me Connor Payne vibes, where if Western United come good again, he's going to turn into Iniesta. But in regards to Newey, he's played over 100 games for them. And yeah, I think it's going to be a loss. Like, he seems to have been with them since he was quite young, and fans liked him. And yeah, it just seems like a tough loss as a fan. But with Newey kind of stagnating and him looking somewhat promising, I think that it's good that he's got to move away to see if he can actually reach his potential. Then Mohamed Al-Tay has gone to Wellington. He's played 30 games across 2 seasons for the Jets, and I don't remember one fucking thing from it, so I'll move on. Becca Mikkeltetsa, massive loss. In 49 games for the Jets, he picked up 25 goal contributions. And yeah, I think he'd be a great signing anywhere else in the A-League, is my point. Everyone was taking him in fantasy. He didn't have an amazing season for the Jets, but he's a proven A-League goal scorer. And I think any club on the lookout for a striker would be happy to take Becca Mikkeltetsa. Then Manubo Saito also leaves. 33-year-old forward, and I don't care. I'm not going to rerun through Newcastle's because I started doing that, but this video is starting to take a while, so I'm just going to move on. Perth Glory, Ollie Sale, another massive signing. He signed for 3 years from the Knicks. He's a New Zealand international. He played 82 games. I'm not sure if it's in the league and the cup. 82 games for Wellington, keeping 17 17 clean sheets. And yeah, I think he's had some amazing games in the A-League. He looks like a really good keeper. He kind of phoned it in towards the end at Wellington, I reckon. But yeah, he's got good potential. And yeah, if Perth can keep him for 3 years, they've probably got a keeper sorted. Then on the outs, Jacob Dowse, as we mentioned, went to, was it Mariners? I thought it was Newcastle. Yeah, it's Newcastle. I put fucking Mariners there. Idiot. Yeah, anyway, he's gone. Brad Jones has retired, 5 appearances over 2 seasons. Then Keegan Jelicic has left. He scored some screamers at Macedonia Park, played 22 times last season, and he's off to Belgium, the new Scotland. And yeah, fantastic for Perth, fantastic for him, fantastic for Australian football. You know, I want to see great young players in the A-League too, but you can't help but be happy when they get a move overseas. And you obviously want to see them reach their potential. So that's good, but that's a bit of a loss for Perth as well. And then a big loss, actually. And I didn't mention all the manager moves, but I think I mentioned all the managers leaving. Unfortunately, I'm not talking about Steve Corica in this video, but Ruben Zadkovic is fucked off. And I don't have too much to say on it, but it's a little sad because he was there for a year and a half and he kind of turned it around a bit. He did some stuff with Perth. He won them some home games. And yeah, it's just going to be another step back really for Perth. Then on to Sydney FC. The outs are Joel King. His loan ends. I think he would have been good to keep around because Caballo's a bit iffy. Tommy Hewitt-Bell, his contract's expired. We still have an awesome backup keeper in Adam Pavlicic, but I mean, just as a Sydney fan, I want to give a fucking shout out to Tommy Hewitt-Bell, man. He's played some fucking massive games for Sydney. I think he played twice in Adelaide and just made some awesome saves both times. And then, you know, I think in the Champions League too, he's played some games. And, yeah, I mean, he was never a fantastic keeper, but he was always solid and he had some big moments for Sydney. And that's all you can ask for from a player, really. Then, Alex Wilkinson retires. I don't want to get bogged down. Actually, okay, we'll just say Wilkinson retires and Adam Lafondra has left. I don't want to get too bogged down with this video by talking about these two players, but as a Sydney fan, massive losses first of all, but just massive, like just the massivest privilege in the world to watch these two players. Alex Wilkinson was a great defender, and as someone that plays in the defense in Sunday League because I'm shit, I sometimes just watched Alex Wilkinson at games. I just watched where he was standing, watched what he was doing, watched his body language, watched how he was talking to people, and it was awesome. And he got goals in the end, 3, I think. So, yeah, Alex Wilkinson, he scores when he wants. Adam Lafondra also scores when he wants. Genuinely one of the niftiest finishes I think I'll ever see. A lot of the goals that he scored were incredible in person. They were incredible on replays and on the TV too. But just seeing some of the things he did in person, it was why you go to football, why you watch the game. And yeah, he won us trophies along with Alex Wilkinson and a lot of other players. And yeah, you can't help but be sad. But Sydney FC have signed someone. And we actually haven't, but someone that I consider, I didn't want to get bogged down, remember that? Someone that I consider not completely retarded, messaged me on Instagram saying that we've signed Dan Hall from the Mariners. And you know what? Fuck it. I've never had a transfer rumor of my own, so I'm putting on my journalist glasses to say that breaking news, Sydney FC have signed 23-year-old black, that's going to get Adam Santo angry, centre-back, Dan Hall from the Central Coast Mariners. It is happening. It is on. The rebuild is underway. But yeah, I really don't know. But someone said that, and I thought I'd share, because it was a full sentence, and that's quite impressive when it happens on my Instagram. Then, moving on to the Knicks, we've already talked about Altay and Jack Duncan. I think Jack Duncan's a good signing. Not really sure about Altay. Then, yeah, Clayton Lewis has gone to MacArthur. Lucas Margois has gone back to Newey. Ollie Sale has gone to Perth. Jan Sass has left. His contract expired. He played 23 games for the Knicks and never really hit heights. Joshua Laws leaves, nothing special. Callan Elliott, Sydney, do it. Sign Callan Elliott. Fantastic left back. I think he's in the New Zealand youth setup. He may have even made caps for the first team. And I think he looks solid for the Knicks. He's young, he's a right back, and I'd take him at Sydney. Then Nico Boxall is a player that played for Wellington, and he doesn't anymore. And Steven Ugarkovic as well. 28, defensive midfielder, has been good in the A-League before, has shown glimpses, but was very disappointing with the Knicks, in my opinion. Well, I think another A-League club will take a punt on Ugarkovic. And if he gets into a good team, I think that he could actually play some good football. But, that's the Knicks. Then we move on to Western Sydney Wanderers, who are doing what they do and having, a massive exodus in the off-season. Morgan Schneiderlin has left. He's a big loss. He was very good for them. Basically straight away when he came in. Couldn't beat Sydney in the finals, though. Terry Antonis, fuck you, scum. Contract terminated. He's been with Westies twice and he's done fuck all with them. Should not be getting another A-League contract, by the way. Romain Amalfitiliano, a 33-year-old attacking midfielder. I remember him playing and I don't remember him being complete shit. There's that. Jack Washorski, I've got it written differently here. All right, well, he's left. Ngbakoto, he's French, right? His contract expired and he looked decent. Then Adama Traore, he left and he ended up looking good for them under Rudan this season. So, that's a decent loss. Then, Daniel Wilmering has also left. We mentioned that. Alessandro Lapane has also left, and I don't really care. But the big one for me is Amor Leuni. There's been a bit of a kerfuffle. I think I saw somewhere on Twitter, basically, that he was very unhappy. FIFA, I'm out of here. At the contract Western Sydney offered him. I don't know how true it is, but it's a big loss because that dude could play wide. He was fucking massive. He picked up 7 goals and assists in 11 games. He ripped apart Sydney before getting knocked out to us in the elimination final. And he'd be a great pickup for any A-League side. So, the fact that Western Sydney have blown that gives me great hope for next season. But yeah, Leuni's on the out. Oh no! My fucking phone. Alright, there we go. We've got some storage on my phone. And the last team we got to talk about is Western United. I'm not going to talk about their signings because they're I thought it'd be funny, but as I said it, I kind of cringed. They've signed Angus Thurgate. We've already talked about that. And then they've just got a bunch of outs, really. Topor Stanley and Alessandro Diamanti have both retired. James Troisi is a worthless piece of shit. His contract expired, and I think he should be done in the A-League. Ryan Scott, Adesu Bayu, Ben Collins, and Ajak Du have all also left. But then, besides those, by the way, Nikolai Topor Stanley, obviously massive A-League legend, and congrats on the career and everything. And Diamanti as well, he's retiring from football, and he's not the typical marquee you'd want, but he's come into a fucking ridiculous club in Western United, and he's absolutely embraced what few fans they do have, and the A-League as a whole. So, I mean, those two players' careers have also been great, and I thought I'd just make mention of that. But yeah, besides all those players, there's some decent players leaving Western. Jamie Young, he's 37, but he's a massively experienced player. He's won the league with Western United, and I think he'd make a fine pickup for a season or two for any club on the lookout for a goalkeeper. Then Leo Lacroix, don't know whether he'd stay in the A-League or not, but his contract expired. He was a top centre-back in the competition when Western United were challenging for the plate and winning the league. He had a bad season last season, but he could be a good pickup. Tongo Doumbia, I actually don't know why I put him in this list. Fuck him. Maybe he's good. I actually don't know. Neil Kilkenny, 37 as well. I think he might be a bit more washed than Jamie Young, just because he plays in the midfield, and you don't really see too many extremely old midfielders in the A-League. But he could be a potentially decent pickup somewhere, either as, a starting player, or even just a player to have around the squad. I think his knowledge of the game would be invaluable. And finally, Dylan Piraeus, another player I'd like Sydney to sign, because I think he'd be a great pickup for any club in the league. He was excellent in the year that Western United won the championship. He's been there for a while now, and it's probably time for him to take a step up to a real football club. So, yeah, he's on the cards. And that's it. It took under 40 minutes, guys. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I tried to keep it somewhat lighthearted while still being informative. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on just the facts that I've spit here, or just the A-League and the transfers in general, or if I've missed something, or whatever. I love to see your comments. It's why I do this, along with just to get these dumb fucking thoughts out of my head, because it's like a fucking cartoon. They're literally just in there. Ding, 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 ding. Angus Thurgate's going to be awesome. Ding, 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 ding. It's fucking insane. So yeah. That's that. See ya.